Namaste Jai Hind, you're watching or listening to another edition of the ANR podcast with Smita Prakash. This episode is being filmed on the 10th of May 2025. My guest today is General Satish Dua. He has served as Chief of Integrated Staff to the Chairman of the Chief of Staff Committee, CISC, of the Indian Armed Forces. He was also Commanding Officer of the 15th Corps in Kashmir. We've hosted several Corps commanders of the Chinar Corps. General Satish Dua was the Kashmir Corps commander during the surgical strike in September 2016. So thank you so much for being in the podcast. We are recording this on the 10th of May. We've now had 72 hours of shelling, continuous shelling by Pakistan. They have struck at various places on the western frontier from J&K. They've gone to Punjab, they've gone to Amritsar, to Haryana, they've attacked Rajasthan, they've gone into Gujarat also. We just saw the press conference of the Foreign Secretary and the two persons from the Air Force and the Indian Army. They were there and they spoke about how there have been Hawaii Ghuspet is also what the lady said. So if you can tell me, sir, what you thought of the press conference and where do you see this conflict going now?
Talking about the press conference per se first, the Hawaii Ghuspet that she spoke about, air intrusions were attempted.
Okay.
But all of them have been negated by our air defense, integrated air defense grid. Now, that has been a very good story over the last 2 days. Integration of the air assets, air defense assets of all three services and actually, so far, we have only used short-range missiles and bulk of them are made in India. So that's something that we can really, really be proud of. Also, the cautionary note here, I would also sound that this attack over the wide front, air intrusions with drones earlier, today with drones and
heavy artillery.
With some fighter aircrafts. They are also trying to probe the gaps that may exist in our air defense. So for 48 hours, we've been seeing that our air defense is very robust. So that's a good thing. The other thing I found very interesting, and I'm sure you would have noticed, not only in this press conference, even in the earlier ones, how they've made very good use of the video clips. They've actually, for example, the first 9 targets that were attacked, they showed the video clip taken by the drone or by the same platform, whichever way. They showed the target, then they showed, for example, if it was Bhavalpur, they showed Bhavalpur from the air, then they showed that bomb going in or a missile going in and landing exactly at the pinpoint location. And thereafter, after a couple of hours, another videos of the damage were put out from the ground reports. You see, I see, and today, also, what they've done is they showed, they said Pakistan has made claims about a number of airfields claims were made by Pakistan that these we have destroyed. On each of this, they showed the runway, they showed the Air Force station, the name outside, and then they showed the runway and the timestamp that it is now, it's a current photograph and see the runways are intact. By doing this, I think we've learnt our lessons also. In 10 years ago, 9 years ago, when we had the Uri surgical strike, there were a lot of questions by the media, by the opposition parties, by different vested interests would say, this has not happened, there is no proof. Then, very tenuously, some proof was released later. But the damage had been done.
And Balakot.
Similar thing happened with Balakot. I think we could not release these things in time. Maybe it was to do with secrecy, and now we've learnt our lessons and we didn't want to give out our tactics and the damage assessment. But this time round, I think we are taking initiative. And, we were talking about the fact that how we should also build our narrative based on credible reports, and this is what is happening. So that's a very heartening sign.
Right. So we were talking about the cover of the other thing which was pointed out was this cover of civilian flights which were taken, and India had to exercise restraint to see that civilian deaths don't occur. So they use the cover of civilian aircraft in that area, and then they were hitting us with drones overnight. This is the 9th night, 10th early morning.
Yes, you're right. So now, I think this is an ethos that I am very familiar with because over the last 4 decades, I have been fighting terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. And we see these trends. Using local population as human shields is not new to them. Their ethos stems from their handlers. And we have seen this today or yesterday when they are, for them, they are taking sort of refuge, hiding behind the skirts and hiding behind those civilian flights, knowing that India as a responsible nation will take evasive measures but will not try to shoot down this thing. Because if that happened, they would also play it to the gallery then. Let's say there was a civilian flight that was brought down. So that would create an outrage. But they don't put it, I won't put it beyond them to sort of use them as fodder.
Yeah, because when it is jihad, it doesn't matter, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, every time you think about that एक बार आपने कह दिया कि ये जिहादी अम्ब्रेला में आ गया है, तो आप कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. उसमें वो फिर then there is everything is justified.
But उसका भी एक और पहलू है.
जी.
आप देखिए ना, they go by the Western way of fighting. When American or multinational forces fight in Iraq or Afghanistan, their emphasis on collateral damage is very less. I mean, they don't care so much as we care because it is our population. We don't even use medium machine guns. We don't use machine guns in counter-terrorism. We don't use heavy weaponry at all. Look at Pakistan when it is fighting TTP or fighting Baloch. They use gunships. Yeah. They use air raids. The kind of collateral damage that occurs in Pakistan, though very little news filters out, is more than that meets the eye.
Yeah.
So their ethos is different. I'm talking, since we are talking about the civilian flights, they don't care much. Whereas we, having been in combat myself, we would rather a terrorist escape than a neighboring civilian die.
And not just in Jammu Kashmir, sir. Anywhere, whether it was in Naga insurgency, whether it was Naxal, all these Northeast things also, we have not used gunships on our people.
Never.
And we have not used
heavy weaponry itself, let alone air platforms. We have never used heavy weaponry. There is a medium machine gun which is very effective, but we don't use it at all.
Yeah. Our forces, our tri-forces work with a certain code of ethics, whereas that is non-existent in मैं बोली दूं अब दुश्मन मुल्क. I mean, we are at a state of quasi-war even if it's not declared.
Absolutely. So, no, I hope it doesn't get to war. We are not at a state of war today.
Right.
I mean, I just want to say this for the viewers.
Okay.
Even Kargil conflict was not a war. This 1971, 1965, 47, 48 were wars. So today, it is not war. We haven't actually crossed borders, the land forces, etc. So it is somewhat in a sub-conventional dimension as of now. I would hope it remains like that.
So this was put out by the Government of India, Ministry of Defence. It says Pakistan continued its hostilities on 10th of May 2025 by targeting places of worship like the famous Shambhu temple and residential areas in Jammu. Multiple armed drones have been sent through the night, endangering civilians and religious sites. The Indian Army forces remain vigilant and are committed to defending the sovereignty of the nation. So this was mentioned even in the press briefing in which the representatives from the Indian Air Force and the Indian Army said that they hit at hospitals and schools in the garrison towns.
Right.
So hitting at places of worship, hitting at the schools and at the hospitals, what is this?
This is barbaric. And there is no other word for it. Because today, we have precise information about the targets. It's a very transparent world. We cannot say that we were trying to hit this place and the collateral damage is a school or a hospital. We have precise information. For example, where we hit precisely the terrorist camps. We did not hit the neighboring civilian localities. Muridke is a population center, but we only hit the LET headquarters. So what I'm trying to say is, with that kind of information, hitting at schools and hospitals is perhaps to spread panic in our populace. Hitting at places of worship, temples, gurdwaras, churches, is to sow discord between religions. I mean, that seems to be their theory or effort or endeavor all through. So that is a new low.
So my sense is at this time, which I'm not sure, so I'm putting it out because we've just seen the press conference. My sense is also that hitting at the schools and hospitals in and about the cantonment area, these are not non-family stations. They probably want to create a panic so that the forces send their families back home from those areas. It's also summertime. So even sending them back home will not be something, out of the ordinary. ठीक है. Schools summer vacations are on, so they can send. But I'm guessing they want mass movement of population as much as possible. So that creates pressures, like at the railway stations, at the bus addas, at all these places. So my sense is that this is what the enemy wants.
Yes. Also, to create a sentiment of panic, more than the movement. I said this once earlier also, that when they, even in Pahalgam, when they separated the males from the females, they actually let the women folk go, and they said that Modi ko batao, things like that. When women and children go back to different parts of the country, and at the funerals they're crying over the bodies, it creates a very different kind of sentiment. It demoralizes the country. But it also evokes anger and outrage, but it also demoralizes. The similar thing is over here. When schools, hospitals are being hit, it also demoralizes the country. You see many people, so many places, flights have been cancelled. Unconnected places which are not the border areas. My son is into an event management. There's an event which has been cancelled here in Delhi because of this is happening. It is affecting livelihoods. When you saw this kind of panic everywhere.
So creating panic is something also a tactic of war, sir. Even though we are saying that we are not in a state of war,
true.
But it is one of the tactics which is created to cause a sense of anxiety in civilian populations.
Absolutely.
But I think this time, because of very judicious use of social media, and many of us who are in a position to dispel propaganda, we are all playing our role as citizens, as leaders. I'm seeing district magistrates doing their job, chief ministers, MPs, MLAs, regardless of the political affiliations, are all doing their job. Even resident welfare associations putting out notices on their WhatsApp group saying hoarding ki zarurat nahi hai.
Yes.
Do not hoard on things. These kind of things are being done. I think we're all now aware of what the nefarious aims are.
While that is totally true, I agree with you, Smita, but you can't still get away from the fact that there will be a sentiment. When you do things like the schools, hospitals, sending women away from Pahalgam, there is that sentiment of negativity does come in. A little bit of panic will set in. When the moment you say don't hoard, many people will jump to buy. That it also is it works is self-defeating at times.
Yeah. So I just want to bring this tweet to your notice. This is what happens. This is New York Times correspondent. Now he has no issue without cross-checking, without verifying. He tweeted a couple of hours ago to say Pakistan has reportedly struck multiple air bases in response to earlier missile attacks. Targets include BrahMos missile storage in Bias, Udhampur Air Base and Pathankot Airfield. Eye for an eye, Pakistan security officials say.
Yeah.
Now, few hours later, in the briefing it was said that all these targets, if there were targets to attack these, they were all foiled. But it did not deter a foreign media personnel to put out fake news.
True. So, you see, we were talking earlier that how Pakistan plays this manipulated narrative very well. You look at the name of the person who's put out a tweet. While he may be New York Times, as you mentioned, but you see the name, Salman Masood. So, you know that they have their own pockets of goodwill in these media houses. And he says, Pakistan security officials say. So he can wash his hands off by saying, I am only reporting what I was told by the Pakistan security officials. Pakistan's security machinery is putting out this kind of propaganda, we know. But coming from New York Times, it lends itself a great amount of credibility.
Some kind of credibility.
Also a great amount of visibility in the Western world.
Yeah.
So that is where we also need to engage. Though we need to engage from the point of a credible narrative, like our press media just put out, that this is false and here's a photograph to show that no airfield has been damaged. Things like that. So I think, like we discussed earlier, we also need to play this game where battle of mind space is almost as, if not more important than other means.
Now, sir, this has what has happened when we were talking about how civilian populations are reacting.
Yes.
Now, this is the crowd of people who had come in to volunteer, because yesterday there was a information put out in Chandigarh which said that able-bodied youth who can help in civil defense,
Yes.
please volunteer. And look at the number of people who have come. I mean, this is quite amazing. So when we are talking about, people panicking and leaving cities or something like that, because there were crowds of people who were seen in railway stations, but railway station हमारे यहाँ वैसी भीड़ होती है summer में. It's not as if नहीं होता. But look at the number of people who are coming in to volunteer services, wanting to help the administration.
Let me say this for our viewers and more for the younger generation. They haven't seen war. You see, Kargil war whipped up a very good patriotic sentiment, but it was limited. And that also today's youth has not seen, because the Kargil war itself was 26 years ago.
Yeah.
We have seen the 1965, 1962, I was a child, but 65 war I remember. My father was in the Air Force on a forward air base. I remember being in trenches most of the time and we couldn't come out. 1971 war. Let me tell the viewers, Smita, that that time I remember there were incidents where sitting in a Gurdwara or a mandir, the Panditji or the local leaders asked that we need, and that time India was very poor. They said we need money, we need to buy things and send them to the military. I have seen women take off without even consulting their husbands. In Gurdwara, women and men sit on either side of the aisle. They have taken off their jewelry and put it down in the siropa there. People have taken out whatever they had, cash, jewelry, and that kind of spontaneous wave of patriotism ran in our country then when we were poor. And this is not hearsay. This happened. So what I'm trying to say, when you say that these people have ended up there, our youth today are no less patriotic. They may be using today's tools of WhatsApp because they are their current tools. But this is the sentiment that is so heartening, so reassuring for the country. There were some people who were questioning, why are we doing these blackouts in today's age, day and age, satellites are there and this, so everything is still, everything can be seen even if there is a blackout. I spoke to a fighter pilot of mine, fighter aircraft pilot, and I gathered that if it is actually pitch dark, despite all the tools and instruments at their disposal, for them, if it's pitch dark, it's very unnerving to fly. So that's why it is very important to have those blackouts. It's very important to observe those air raid sirens and the measures that the civil defense is putting out. I mean, I thought this is a good opportunity to tell the viewers this, to be responsible citizens. And I'm very happy to see this heartening response.
Amazing. For me, it reinforces the fact that anybody who thinks that, the fissures that we have in our society are such deep fissures that it will cause a breakup. No, it doesn't. These are fissures which in a democratic society occurs. Like the Foreign Secretary said, that criticism of the government which is being done is not criticism in the sense of wanting to break away or break up the country. This is a democracy where there are multiplicity of opinions and views. Unlike in a flawed and democracy, what they call themselves a democracy, but a rogue nation like Pakistan. I just want to know your view about, when Pakistan puts out these false narratives. You have been watching foreign media, you have gone on foreign media, the narrative that they try to force. Do you think there are buyers for that narrative? And also, you were posted in Kashmir. What is the difference between that narrative and the takers of that narrative in Kashmir then and now?
The first question first. Do I think there are buyers of that narrative that Pakistan peddles? I think so. You see, that is the power of narratives today. It affects the cognitive thinking of a person. A person who's seeing it doesn't have the experience because he hasn't been there. So he takes things more at face value. Especially coupled with some audio-visual clips, it makes a deep imprint. So, and even an intelligent person who might feel that, I don't know whether this is true, but that visual sticks in his mind.
वो reinforce हो जाता है.
Reinforce हो जाता है. It affects the cognitive thinking. That's what I'm saying. It just sort of creeps in surreptitiously in the mind. That's one part. And your second question as to
buyers of that narrative
in Kashmir.
In Kashmir, yeah.
So earlier we wouldn't have to even ask this question because people in Kashmir were eager to buy that narrative.
They used to watch PTV
they used to watch PTV. In fact, I know this. For example, you'd be surprised. 10 years ago, I remember I found out how boys are getting so radicalized when I was a corps commander and earlier. So, any bus coming down from a village to a little bigger town, let's say Handwara or Kupwara, coming from a village, the boy would give, everyone had mobile phones, they would give them money to buy a film, a movie. So they would buy a small SD card. The movies go in a small SD card now. Okay, so a SD card would go and there's a Bollywood movie, let's say. In that Bollywood movie, so I have taken a couple of those SDs and cards and seen it. It's a normal Bollywood movie going on. Suddenly in between, there will be a preacher coming in between 3 minutes of, a radicalization speech by somebody.
Yeah, General Bipin Rawat showed me some of those.
All right, yeah. So this is the way they were radicalizing people, narratives were being spun and affecting their cognitive thinking. Now what's happening today? You wanted the difference. Last 5 years, the youth today, the youth of Kashmir, have tasted the peace dividend. And they are not having to rely on internet or YouTube to live or experience the life, because today they themselves have multiplexes. They have fast KFC, they have Domino's, they have Haldirams. So they're seeing life as youth should. So they are not buying this narrative very easily.
Okay.
It will. Am I saying that alienation is over? No. It will take time. It will take a couple of generations. But the change is occurring.
So, I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth. Ek baar analysis, ek baar actuals. One of the questions which has come up on social media, and I think everybody's talking about that also, is this fear of the nuclear bogey. Because even as we are recording this, Shahbaz Sharif is having a meeting with a bunch of people who are supposed to be part of their nuclear command. If they have a nuclear command, I don't know. Can you explain to me that how fast can they escalate it to become a nuclear threat to India?
You see, firstly, before coming to the details, let me just talk about the Pakistan's ability to call the nuclear bluff. They've been using this nuclear card for too long. In Kargil conflict, the world was worried that this two nuclear nations, neighboring countries, are at war. I mean, it was not full-blown war, but we were fighting each other. And President Bill Clinton really invested himself personally to ensure that he restrained both sides. While we evicted them, but we did not escalate to a nuclear conflict. Then when Uri terrorist attack took place, and remember, Uri happened a few months after Pathankot had happened, and that
you were heading Chinar Corps.
Yes,
then?
I was.
Okay.
Mr. Parikar, yes, Mr. Parikar landed up in my office. We planned that Uri strike, and when I suggested let's do something, because we are only getting defensive all the time. We need to sort of make it heard. We don't have terrorists to send across, so let's go and hit the terrorist camps.
For those who are, are not aware about this situation, I suggest you Google the Uri surgical strikes, and the defense minister, the Raksha Mantri at that time was Manohar Parrikar. So you can Google on that too, and you will get to know the details if you haven't been keeping track. I'm sorry, some say.
No, thank you.
Because there are experts,
yes.
And youngsters who may not know about that. Go ahead, sir.
Right. And my first book, India's Brave Hearts, in the first chapter is about this. The narrative that I'm telling you now.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt your thought. Yeah.
So when Uri happened, when the Uri surgical strikes took place, that was a shallow strike, multiple strikes, but only 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers. But we called the nuclear bluff.
Okay.
So they did not escalate. They were forced to say nothing much has happened. There has been only an RT shelling from across the border. There were no raids and things like that. Why were they forced to say that? Because they didn't. Otherwise, they would have to engage. Otherwise, they would have to. Now they have to respond, and they were in no position to respond. So, right. When Balakot happened, precision airstrike. deep inside. And again, we called their nuclear bluff because this time, air element, the air fighters had actually crossed across the borders.
Deep into Pakistan.
Yes, so they'd gone inside. So, yet, the military term is, we held the escalatory matrix dominance was held by us. Escalatory dominance was with us. So, we actually on these two occasions, we've actually called their nuclear bluff. Right? Okay. So otherwise for long, they have been waving this nuclear card at us. Having said that, now to your question about how easy it is and how quickly can they launch if they actually get to that. Firstly, there is an escalatory ladder. It is not that the moment some attacks are made, then nuclear weapons can be pulled out.
Okay.
Russia, Ukraine, going to be 4 years, 3.5, 3 years plus. So there is always saber rattling, but they're not using nuclear weapons. But here it is different because both countries have nuclear weapons. So it is actually more of a deterrent here.
Okay.
That having been said,
the MAD doctrine.
Yes, so obviously. So if let's say our philosophy is no first use. Our nuclear doctrine says no first use. But it does not stop us from a second use. And it will be devastating. Okay. Pakistan as a country has very little depth. India is a huge country and we have a lot of strategic depth. Coming to their nuclear command authority, yes, they do have a nuclear command authority. It was formulated in the latest edition was in the times of General Musharraf, and they have a proper nuclear command authority. So it is nuclear attacks or nuclear weapons cannot be launched. It's not as if they are lying in some heavy, safely guarded garages and they can be launched at somebody's orders. There is no nuclear button like that. There is a nuclear command authority to take any decisions. That authority has to meet. And I am sure, even in worst of times, even Pakistan, there are saner voices that will prevail. That's one part.
We are hoping a lot.
Secondly, nuclear weapons are not, like I said, they're not in a ready to launch position.
They are in different positions.
They are in different. And by necessity, they are dispersed in different bases. Bases will be in different towns. So, components have to be brought together. They have to be mated. And then the delivery means they have to be taken to the delivery means and the delivery, whatever platform is to be used, and then there. So it's a long drawn process. It involves a number of components and a number of people different.
How do we know that it's not already been done?
When such things happen, there are some large vehicles that move. All the 9 nuclear countries, the international bodies have an overwatch. The inspectors are allowed to come and see the facilities.
So when the radioactive material moves...
No, when anything moves, the satellites are watching, the world is watching, the intelligence community of all the big countries is watching, because a nuclear attack, however small it may be, will affect not only those 2 countries, it will affect the world. It will. And it has... Then there is no stopping it. There is, you see, if a country uses it, the other country will also not stop.
Right. Yeah.
So that will happen. So what I'm trying to say is that using the nuclear weapon is not going to be as easy as it is said.
Yeah. So their leadership often does that. They use the terms very loosely. We had General Dhillon here who was saying कि उनके जो Sheikh Rashid हैं, या even Fawad Chaudhry, they all keep saying हमारे पास 5 किलो का bomb hai.
They have a
bomb फेंक देंगे and all that. Why is it that on the Indian side, even though we have so many more politicians, our country is so large, rarely do you hear
anyone use
this kind of loose talk about our nuclear weapon. It doesn't, I guess it's not in the part of our psyche, right?
Not at all. You see, Pakistan knows that it is no match for India in conventional terms.
So hence...
And that is why they've launched this war by death by 1,000 cuts and all that. That's their policy.
Right.
So, but India has no reasons to do that. We are too big. We are a responsible nation. Even our irresponsible politicians, sorry for saying that, even some of the irresponsible politicians don't make such statements about nuclear card.
So another question which has come up, and again I'm saying I apologize that hum deep strategic baat pe nahi ja rahe hain. We just like immediate news. Turkey, the drones which have come in, and some of the stuff, the fragments which are there of the projectiles, they seem to indicate that Turkey could have supplied those. Are they like pehle ke pade hue the? Have Turkey, Azerbaijan, China, have they given some emergency supplies to Pakistan or assured them of emergency supplies? And why are these countries backing Pakistan today? Don't they realize backing a rogue nation is not something which will be beneficial for them too?
True. That's a very good question, Smita. As they are using they have drones from Turkey and China. Large component this time was Turkey, though Chinese drones were also used. As to your question of pehle ke pade hue the, obviously they couldn't have come in the last 2 days.
Okay.
So they've been supplying them. Why are they backing them? Before that, how many countries are backing them? Openly only Turkey, China. They are the ones who really matter, who are backing them. And even the Middle Eastern countries, which used to back Pakistan earlier, UAE, Saudi Arabia, they are looking the other way now. They are not backing them as it were, as earlier. Now, why is China, we know why China is backing them. Okay, that's a different story. Why is Turkey backing them? I think Turkey is also, although it's a NATO country, but it is also jostling for space in the Islamic world. Saudi Arabia is the established leader of the Islamic world today because Makkah, Medina are there. But their pole position or the leadership position actually came about after oil was discovered. Before that, Ottoman Empire was a very big empire. They feel the loss of their position. It was a very old civilization and a caliphate, and so they hope to get back to that. And I know everyone knows it, but let me say it. Pakistan is the only Islamic country that has a nuclear capability, nuclear bomb. So hence that affinity is my reading.
So ordinary citizens watching all this happening, they're all talking to each other. You're seeing that on social media. You're seeing it on WhatsApp. That everybody's sending that Turkey chutti ke liye nahi jana chahiye. We should not do it. See, everybody wants to play a role. Not everybody is a uniformed soldier. Not everybody can go and volunteer for whatever, blood donation, civil defense. Sab log nahi kar sakte hain. So their bit is that we should boycott countries, we should boycott going on vacations, we should boycott. And it does impact.
Yes.
Because we've seen what happened with Maldives. If you do not go and if you do not spend, if Indian tourists do not go, it does impact.
2 decades ago, when I was posted to Vietnam as a defense attaché, as a colonel, those days whenever one traveled outside, Indian tourists, when you entered a shop or a store, they would not really give you the time of the day in a shop or a store because Indians were not big spenders. And they would continue to serve the Western tourists. Today, it's other way around. Indians are the biggest spenders when they go around. And Indians travel a lot to many destinations. And it will pinch a country where, for example, Turkey, especially Istanbul, and I've been there a couple of times, is a very is a very popular destination from India. And if we stop going there, it will hurt them. In fact, this does make a difference. And in fact, if you allow me 20 seconds to say, I have been saying after the Pahalgam carnage that this is our time to show our support to the Kashmiri people. When Kashmiri people as one have come and condemned terrorism for the first time in decades, we should not cancel our Kashmir trips during this summer vacation. We should go there to express solidarity with them. Many Bollywood celebrities and influencers have started talking about it and are going there. So I think we should boycott such places and show our like Turkey as we spoke of, and show our solidarity with Kashmir.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, to think that when there was the earthquake in Turkey, we gave them mobile
Yes.
hospitals. We sent medicines, and this is how they respond. But it's not surprising. Many years ago, when I was a very young reporter, and Kamal Sibal was the foreign secretary, and we were in Istanbul, and I just asked. It was a prime ministerial visit, and I just asked, have we signed? Prime Minister was Mr. Vajpayee, and I said, have we signed any strategic cooperation with them? Is there any way that we'll be? I just wanted to know because do we have a listening post there? What is it that we're going to be doing? To which he said that understand the mentality of the Turks. They will be friendly towards you, but they're not your friends. Yeah. He said that off the record, but I think enough time has passed for me to put it on record that he said at that time that it is Hindustan जो है वो दोस्त है, Pakistan भाई है. Sometimes misunderstanding of young people, young reporters, of seeing friendly gestures as state policy is something which is wrong.
True.
Just because they are friendly towards you doesn't mean that they are going to change their state policy. This is what we have to see.
We are seeing that now between, let me not name the leaders, between India and US as well.
Yeah.
Personal chemistry apart, we have different.
That is a different ball game altogether. So there are many people who turn around and say that this armchair nationalism, there's a term which is used that armchair nationalism is detrimental, that what we are seeing in the media is a lot of jingoism that happens. Yeah. Could you tell me, because you were in Kashmir several times, could you tell me what role does the media play in narratives, setting the narrative, the impact on the people?
I think, Smita, media plays a very important role, and increasingly so in today's times. Media and both social media as well. Because the common man actually turns towards media for information. And it is not only the news, it is how the news is presented is very important. Pardon my saying so, some of the media channels I see are not very responsible. You see, in today, earlier we were talking about how panic can set in because of a couple of incidents, how people, the targeting of hospitals, schools, things like that. Panic can set in.
Yeah.
And some of the media houses, when they report things, there are siren blarings in the background. There is very melodramatic music like a Bollywood movie, and saying this is happening, that is happening. If the anchors and news persons are shouted, excited, it creates that, it whips up that kind of thing in some civilian, in a viewer. They are looking for information, and if you get this kind of a frenzy, hyperactive news anchor, I don't think it's helping the matters. We need to be more responsive. We need we need to be more responsible. And media does play a very important role, and media should play that important role in creating a credible narrative rather than picking out something while it is unconfirmed and trying to run it for, first past the post kind of a philosophy. I think that's not required. I have seen a couple of very responsible news channels say, we've heard of this, but we are not going to play it because we still haven't got an official confirmation.
Yeah, and that happened last night also.
Yes.
When we heard, यहाँ पे 2 jets गिरे हैं, वहाँ पे 2 jets गिरे हैं. There is so much of pressure, sir, because one channel runs it, one this runs it, you feel like running it, right?
No, so yours a news agency,
we will not.
You will not run it.
Yeah.
But the news channels are sort of competing with each other. You see every news channel trying to start their news 2 minutes earlier than the other one, so that so they draw the TRPs. To my mind, our media needs to mature.
Okay.
When I've been on different channels in international channels, even Middle East channels. I've been on, even BBC. At least I do detect a bias.
Slant.
Yes, they do have, and I have had to correct the anchor. I was speaking to BBC London. I said, no, this is not. You can't call it whatever. So, but my point is, there is no. It is not. Hype is not being created during discussions.
Yeah. In a measured tone, you can still convey the channel, message.
I was speaking, like I spoke with the Pakistan former MP, but the discussion was civil.
Right.
So that is what is required. Whereas our channels, there is shouting, anchors are also behaving like that, and the discussants are also, the panelists are also shouting at each other, anchors shouting at the panelists. That is something that we need to mature.
Right. And, I just, a day before yesterday, the Indian ambassador in Washington, D.C. Went on a channel there, and the anchor said Indian administered Kashmir,
Yes.
Wolf Blitzer. And Mr. Quatra immediately turned around and
Yes.
said, let me correct you. All of Kashmir is part of India. And it warmed the cockles of my heart, because for years and years, we've heard this Indian occupied Kashmir, Pakistan administered Kashmir. Then somehow it changed to Indian administered Kashmir, Pakistan administered Kashmir. And we never bothered to correct these foreign anchors. And this time he immediately corrected. He waited, very politely corrected, and said all of Jammu and Kashmir is Indian.
And that is exactly what I said on BBC in London.
Okay.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
She tried to say Pakistan and India own Kashmir. I said no, it is owned by India.
Okay.
And so things like that.
And the other thing is that lots of people are angry with celebrities who say that both countries should pipe down, give peace a chance. And then there are others who respond to them and say that I have relatives in Jammu and in Kashmir. They are under threat, but they are saying no. If it is de-escalation, leave it to the government to decide when de-escalation.
Absolutely.
So your view on this?
You see, not only this issue of de-escalation, I think in so many aspects, we must leave the decision to the right quarters. For example, even in media, why are we attacking? Why are we not attacking? We should take the whole of POJK. This is the right time to strike. No, we don't need to do this, have this jingoism.
Yeah.
You can have a discussion on this.
Yeah.
You can give your point of view. But don't say, why aren't we doing it?
Yeah.
Because decisions cannot be taken in TV studios
or
in the minds of the public. They have to be informed decisions taken by, whereas military decisions are concerned, they have to be taken by the military leaders. Of course, there is a political oversight. It's a democracy.
I always say, listen to the 15th Corps commanders who have retired, because they know best.
So
that's my line always.
Thank you. So the point I'm trying to make is the decisions should be left to domain experts and the current leaders.
Yeah.
I put myself in the veterans and the past leaders. Even we, some of us are also guilty of trying to say this has not been done. In my time, I did this and this. Even that is passé.
Yeah.
The current leadership, whether it is military or diplomatic or political, is well capable, as we were during our times, and let them make their decisions. Aren't they making the right decisions? Aren't we seeing the fruits today? I myself had, I won't hesitate in saying, I myself had doubts in our jointmanship and integrated air defense command, because I was seeing there was so much sort of turf, etc. happening during my time. But today I am so proud of the way that our integrated command of all three services assets has been so effective, and our Indian Make in India products are effective. So what I am trying to say is we should leave that. The media should play a responsible role. The veterans, the past, former diplomats, former military leaders, and in other fields, we should offer our advice, fine.
PM met with veterans yesterday, some veterans, and he spoke with them. So you just mentioned just now, you were Chief of Integrated Defence Staff. Can you tell me a little bit about what this Integrated Defence Staff, what does that mean?
So, you see, everyone knows of the three service headquarters. There is an Army headquarters, there's a Naval headquarters, and there's an Air Force headquarters. There is also a fourth headquarters since 2001, and it is called Integrated Defence Staff. This has under it all the establishments, installations, forces which are tri-service in nature. So there are many. Talk of training establishments. The National Defence Academy is a tri-service academy. The Defence Services Staff College is a tri-services, and there are several academies like this. Then there are some establishments, intelligence establishments, which are tri-service. Components of all three services are together. Andaman and Nicobar Command is a tri-services command. The Strategic Forces Command is a tri-service command. Okay. All this come under this headquarter. Now this headquarter is headed by the Chief of Defence Staff.
Okay.
Only difference is, when I was the Chief of Integrated Defence Staff,
there was no CDS.
There was no CDS. I was the fourth chief, but I was one rung lower than the chiefs. I was a vice chief status. And now, today, it is headed by the Chief of Defence Staff, General Chauhan. And so this headquarter has under it all the integrated
yesterday we had the visual, sir, and a Prime Minister meeting with the three chiefs,
yes,
CDS, NSA and Raksha Mantri.
Yes.
They were sitting in this meeting, and there was this poker face in the three chiefs, but the CDS was smiling. So I was like, CDS क्यों smile कर रहे हैं? कुछ तो होगा. Like, everybody is looking at body language.
Yeah.
If you could just see these kind of meetings, if you could tell me कि होता क्या है ऐसी meetings में, जब these kind of meetings are held, and you can see the naval chief is taking down notes. The others.
Firstly, before I come to the body language, होता क्या है in meeting? Now, this is a very, very high level meeting. A CCS, Cabinet Committee on Security meeting, consists of the top 4 ministers and the NSA under the chairmanship of Prime Minister. But this meeting is actually a very closed meeting.
Okay.
This has the military chiefs and the NSA and the Defence Minister and the Prime Minister. So they are the ones who will actually take decisions, because they are, except for the Prime Minister, there are not politicians here. They are the experts.
Yeah.
And they are the respective chiefs. So they are the ones who will actually carry out the actions themselves. Right? So, and so
the decision, that the enemy is probably trying to lip read.
Lip read. No. So what is going to happen? What happens here essentially? Like it happened when Mr. Parikar came to my office. Army chief was already there.
Okay.
The Army commander was there. 4 of us sat down and decided what we were going to launch, because that was the first time we did it. So you apprise the leadership of what are the options. You also tell them what are the possibilities. Suppose something goes wrong or something escalates, how prepared we are for an escalation, how prepared we are for a contingency that it may not go right. How much casualties should we also expect on our side, and things like that. So that is why a calculated risk is taken as to what should be launched and what should be held back, what should be launched later or what should not be launched. On 18th of September 2016, the day we had the terror attack at Uri, we lost 18 soldiers. The Defence Minister, Mr. Parikar, late Mr. Parikar, flew down that very day.
Okay.
Over my protestations, actually. I didn't want VIPs on my hands. But then he did come, and then such good came out of it.
And then the surgical strike.
And yes, and 10 days later we launched, because he gave a go-ahead there itself.
Okay.
After considering various things, discussing with us in a
to do the
team.
surgical strike.
Yes.
Okay. And now when the surgical strike, so I interviewed the Prime Minister after the surgical strikes, and he explained in great detail about how he was monitoring it and what that surgical strike meant to him.
True.
Because he was sending in men.
Yes.
He wanted them back alive.
So that's exactly what we decided, and I told the Defence Minister there that we are very sure of success, but there can be some casualties. We have to be prepared for casualties. So there was a lot of, that was a bold decision taken by the leadership at that time. Because we are, like you said, the sending in troops for that mission, even accomplishing that mission is fine, but getting our men back was the key. And I think, fortune favors the brave, and eventually we did not have a single casualty.
Is this in this book of yours?
No, that's in my first book.
In your
India's
first book.
Brave Hearts is not here.
Okay.
This is the book that we were talking about earlier. A General Reminiscences is the book where I write about ups and downs of militancy over the last 4 decades.
Okay.
And what has been the state response.
Okay.
How we raised a counter-terrorism force called Rashtriya Rifles. How we raised Ikhwan, and how we raised a territorial army battalion of my regiment of surrendered terrorists. And what was our response, and how the militancy has changed over the times, how social media came, how stone pelting came in, how it shifted from north to south, and all that. So this gives out the story of those 4 decades.
So, in Kashmir, you spent so many years out there, and you were talking about the Uri strike also, that when you send in people, you don't know whether they're going to come back alive or not. The idea is that everybody should come back alive.
True.
Any operation, you want your men to come back alive.
Yes.
You are at the forefront of it. You're leading that. Today, when these actions are happening, can you tell me about what our chiefs are going through in their mind?
So, any commander at any level, like I've been a commanding officer in combat, especially in counter-terrorism, there is always this thought that my troops, my soldiers should remain safe. Because, 50 of these terrorists are not worth one of my soldiers. But when it comes to safeguarding the nation, our territorial integrity, then it's a different ethos that rules the army, navy or air force. Because then we fight till last man, last round. Round in the army is the word for bullet. So last man, last bullet we fight. When Major Shaitan Singh at Razangla led his company, out of 120, 114 were killed with their hands on the triggers. They knew that they cannot survive, but they decided to not let the Chinese through. So what I'm trying to say, there it's a different ethos to fight. And today what goes through on the minds of the chiefs, commanders at every level, even the bases, whether it's an army base or an air base, is that when their people are out, if in field, in whichever way, whether it is aerial platforms or the land forces, we want our men to be safe. But then not at the cost of territorial integrity. That mission is always more important.
Okay. You talked about land forces. Why is it, sir, that we are not seeing that kind of mobilization of land forces along our IB or even LOC that we saw, say, during Operation Parakram? Not this side, nor from the Pakistani side. Right. Why is that not happening?
I think we haven't moved up the escalatory ladder that much. And secondly, whatever preparations may be carried out on both sides, to whatever extent, will not be seen or shown. And I also feel that we should desist from discussing that.
All right. And also, I think during Parakram, it took a lot of time to move the forces.
Yes.
In today's day and age, movement.
I was going to say that, but let's not discuss it.
Right, sir. But also for Pakistan to move its forces along the border would be hard because that they don't want to leave their western flank unguarded, isn't it? Because of the situation that Balochistan that they have.
So while that is true, but it is also true that Pakistan, being a very narrow country,
northwest to southeast.
Yes. So their military installations are quite close to the border as it is, compared to India. So,
right. So they have been attempting to hit our air defense systems in the past 24 or even 48 hours. They've been trying to hit our air installations. And there were some reports that, and some experts who were saying that they were shooting these cheap drones because they want to know where our air defense is located. Yes. Is that right?
Absolutely. I said that earlier. They're trying to probe. They're trying to probe gaps. So if it comes to that, let us say, I hope it doesn't happen, but if it escalates, where fighters aircrafts have to cross the borders, where they have attempted. They have attempted now, as we heard in the press briefing, but they were
stopped,
halted. So if that happens, they are trying to probe the gaps or weaknesses, as it were, from where they could get in.
Right. I don't know whether you want to talk about it or not. It's totally up to you. But there have been instances in our past, where we crossed and we captured territory, but we gave it up on the table. A number of our military historians say that what we captured in battlefield, we lost on the table. Have we learned from that?
Smita, I think some of it is lack of complete knowledge, a bit of ignorance. For instance, everyone talks of 1966, after 65 war, when 1966, when our Prime Minister Shastri went to Russia, we gave away Haji Pir. Yeah, but we don't know what we had to. What was the trade-off? In the area of Akhnur and Cham, they had come very close to the road. So there were Pakistani gains, and which were hurting our line of communication, our road. So we had to actually. There was a trade-off. We don't talk about that. So
71?
1971, we
broke them
up. They were two different countries. Yes, a lot of people talk about the fact that we gave away our 93,000 prisoner of war without extracting gains or concessions. I'm not privy to what happened, but there were some larger issues at play between Indira Gandhi and Bhutto. But because of his, the regime change that side, I think nothing could happen.
There is a parliament thing, that resolution, which that one day we will get back POK.
Yes.
That it is part of our country. We leave seats in the assembly for them. We leave seats in the parliament. And we say that ek din it'll happen. And now everybody is saying ab decisive abhi hona chahiye. Lots of people saying that ab nahi to kab. What do you have to say to that?
A political rhetoric is a different thing. Military reality is different. And the third dimension, being pragmatic, is also very important. I would just leave it at that.
Right. It's for the leadership to decide
yes.
till where it can go.
No, but military can only deliver a military thing. After that, the leadership has to
that's how it works in India, right? It's
yes.
which the world has to understand, appreciate, and Pakistan doesn't understand that. That we don't have a general Asim Munir kind of a situation where khud hi decide karega kya karna hai.
Well, it's very famously said about Pakistan, every country has an army, and in Pakistan is the army that has a country. So
right. So this visuals are coming in from different places. Barmer se aa raha hai, Jaisalmer se aa raha hai, of projectiles. There's another one which is this large, I don't know whether it's a drone or whether it's a missile. Then there are these which are coming in from Rajasthan. Barmer ka hai ye visual. Explain to me this theatre, Rajasthan. Why are they attacking in Rajasthan? It's a desert. Why are they attacking in Gujarat? They've attacked in Punjab in the past. One fell in Sirsa. Some of the drones fell there. Whether the target was Haryana or whether the target is Delhi, nobody's quite clear. Claims and counterclaims happening. So Punjab, one understands the LOC. Why Rajasthan and why Gujarat? What is the theatre here?
So actually what is happening is that they are activating the entire border.
Okay.
Our international border that starts from, let's say, Siachen Glacier down to Sir Creek, which is in Gujarat. And when you see the Sirsa, all the Nalia, the names that you took in Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab, all places are, they are attacking some military installations, mostly. They're trying to attack, and some civilian localities also on the borders. And the difference is that, when you say this, whether we don't know whether it's headed for Delhi, Delhi is too far inside. But for their problem is Lahore is not too far inside. So when we can attack Muridke, which is 30 kilometers from Lahore, but the distance from border to Muridke and from border to Lahore is same. So you see, they don't have strategic depth. So what I'm trying to say is that they are more scared of our attacks if we were to attack their bases, right? So that's one part. Second, I also want to take this opportunity to inform the viewers. I mean, last night and the night before last, we have been seeing on WhatsApp group from friends calling up and saying at night when there was a blackout, and I've heard on news channels also, they're hearing loud blasts and people are getting scared. I want to tell them, both these nights, what has happened is that when a swarm of drones has tried to cross, and yesterday we heard some, the press briefing said even some fighter aircrafts. When we say that we have our integrated air defense grid has actually stopped the ingress or intrusions from these drones, how does it happen? Either they are blown off by our missiles, Akash missiles, or whatever, our air defense weapon systems, or they are jammed by a communication network jamming, or they are forced to withdraw. So some of these have actually been blown off. They are blown off by our missiles